Okay, so today on the deep dive, we are going into some pretty uncharted territory, I think, for most people.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're talking about portable toilets.
Really? Wow, yeah, that's pretty specific.
It is, it is. But believe it or not, there's a fascinating study from Taiwan that takes a deep dive into the design of unisex portable toilets.
Unisex portable toilets. Okay,
Mm.
you've got my attention. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and I think you will be too, because it really highlights how evidence-based design can revolutionize even the most basic things that we use.
I mean, when you think about it, everyone has experience with portable toilets.
Right, whether you like it or not, you've probably encountered one at some point.
Exactly, exactly. And for many people, like, their experiences are not exactly positive.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, one study we looked at even described them as, and this is a direct quote, terrible, dirty, dark, and smelly.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty blunt.
It is, but it's honest, right? And I think it sets the stage for what we're going to talk about today.
For sure. I mean, it highlights the challenge. So where do we even begin with tackling this design conundrum?
Well, this deep dive is all about looking at this research from Taiwan that really tries to unpack how to design better unisex portable toilets.
Okay, interesting. So how do they go about doing that?
They used both questionnaires and direct observation, like they actually watched people use these facilities.
Wow, that's getting into the nitty-gritty.
It is, but it yields some really valuable insights into user behavior and preferences.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is more interesting than it might seem at first glance.
Right. So we're going to go through their key findings and see how those actually translate into some really clever design solutions.
Right, let's dive in. What's the first thing they found out?
So first, they just asked people in Taipei general questions about their experiences with public toilets and specifically those portable ones.
Okay, makes sense. Get a baseline right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And not surprisingly, odor and uncleanliness were the top concerns.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'd think of too. It's the first thing you notice, right? The smell and whether it looks clean or not.
Absolutely. And I think that tells us a lot about like what designers need to prioritize right from the start.
Yeah, for sure. Material choices, cleaning protocols, things like that. Did they ask what people wanted to see improved?
They did. And it was pretty consistent across the board. People wanted better flushing mechanisms, obviously a clean seat, which is, I think, paramount for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's a deal breaker for me.
Right. And then also readily available toilet paper, ventilation, and even automatic faucets.
Okay, so basically just making the whole experience more hygienic and convenient.
Exactly, exactly. And they actually they ranked what people thought was most important in a portable toilet.
Oh, interesting. What was the order there?
Hygiene was number one, which makes sense given what we just talked about. But then safety was a close second.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Feeling secure,
Yeah.
especially if you're alone.
Right. Then came function, like does the toilet actually work?
Makes sense. Got to do what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. And then how easy it is to find one, like the distance. And lastly, appearance.
Oh, so it seems like appearances are really at the bottom of the list for most people. Interesting.
It is. It is. They also asked people what they would ideally like to see inside a portable toilet. What kind of equipment?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm curious what people said.
Well, top of the list was a wash basin, which, hygiene again.
Of course, of course. You got to be able to wash your hands.
A toilet paper holder, good lighting, because those things can be dark.
Yeah, no one wants to fumble around in the dark in a portable toilet.
Exactly. They also said trash can, a hook, and even a mirror.
Okay, so really emphasizing that practical side of things, like
Hmm.
what would make it a more usable space?
Exactly, exactly. Now, here's something I thought was interesting. Over 80% of respondents said that they preferred separate male and female
Oh,
toilets.
really? I would have thought, with unisex designs becoming more common, that maybe that preference would be shifting.
You would think, but it seems like people are still pretty attached to that traditional setup.
Hmm, interesting. But I guess it speaks to, the need for uh, catering to different preferences.
Absolutely. But they also said that they would like to see unisex and accessible options available too.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a complete rejection of those other types of toilets. It's more about wanting a variety of options, I guess.
I think so, yeah. It speaks to like understanding that there are different needs and preferences within the community.
Right, right. That makes sense.
Okay, so moving on, they also looked at how people actually used portable toilets, like how much time they spent inside.
Oh, wow. They really got granular with this, huh?
They did, and it's fascinating. Women generally reported longer usage times than men, especially for urination.
Okay, that's interesting. And does that align with other research on, like, general bathroom usage?
It does, yeah. And it's something that designers and planners need to keep in mind, especially for events or spaces with high traffic.
Yeah, you don't want people waiting in long lines because you haven't accounted for those differences in usage patterns.
Exactly, exactly. Now, here's a finding that might surprise you.
All right, hit me.
A huge majority, like 74.5% of people surveyed preferred squat toilets over sitting toilets.
Wow, seriously. That is surprising.
Yeah.
I guess I just assumed, with the way things are in a lot of Western countries that sitting toilets would be the default preference.
Right. But this really highlights how important it is to consider cultural context when you're designing something like this.
Absolutely. It shows that, those assumptions we make based on our own experiences might not always hold true in other parts of the world.
Exactly. So that was all from the questionnaires, which gave them a really good understanding of what people said they preferred and what their concerns were.
Right, right. But then didn't they take it a step further and actually observe people in action?
They did, they did. They set up this really cool simulation with male and female participants and had them go through the whole process of using a portable toilet.
Wow, that's dedication to research. I'm
Hmm.
impressed. So what did they learn from watching people?
Oh, tons, tons. First, they paid close attention to where people placed their belongings.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's always a bit awkward trying to figure out what to do with your stuff in a small space like that.
Right. The most common spot was the platform inside the toilet. And they used the right side more often than the left. But a lot of people put their stuff on the floor.
Oh, no, not on the floor, especially if you're thinking about all those hygiene concerns.
Yikes. I know, but here's a key observation. Women always use the hooks to hang their stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just a matter of personal preference. It seems like there's a gender difference there in how they approach that situation.
Yeah, exactly. It suggests that for a lot of women, having hooks isn't just a nice little bonus, it's essential.
Right. It's about keeping their belongings away from potentially dirty surfaces. Makes total sense.
Exactly. And it gives designers a very clear directive: prioritize hooks.
Yeah, don't skip on the hooks.
They also notice people looking for the trash can, and men, especially, searching for the flush pump.
Huh. So maybe those things weren't that easy to find. Or maybe not placed in a very intuitive spot.
Right. Like if you have to search for them, that means they're not obvious enough.
Yeah. You don't want people fumbling around, especially when you're talking about hygiene and keeping these clean. It's got to be straightforward and easy.
And here's a big one. They saw that a lot of people, especially men, struggled to find the hand wash switch.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal.
It is. And there were actually several instances of people bumping their hands, particularly on that right platform that people were using as a handrail.
Oh, yeah. You see that all the time, right? People just instinctively grab for something to steady themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, if they were carrying a backpack, it would bump into things.
So it's not just about the placement of individual fixtures. It's about how they all work together within that limited space.
Right. And how people move through that space.
Makes sense. Did they talk to people after the simulation, like to get their overall
They
impressions?
did. They did. They had these interviews, and they found that 60% of participants identified the floor, the toilet, and the door handle as like the dirty three, the things they were most wary of touching.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I think most people would agree with that assessment.
Right. And they also noted what they called inappropriate actions.
Inappropriate actions. What does that even mean in the context of a portable toilet?
Well, like placing objects on any surface other than the platform or the hook.
Oh, right, because you don't want to put your stuff where it could potentially get contaminated.
Exactly. Also, hesitating or having trouble flushing,
Yeah.
and then even like expressing discomfort or reluctance about washing their hands.
Oh, wow. So it's like, even though hand washing is so important, there's still this like psychological barrier there because of the perceived uncleanliness of the environment.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that speaks to the need for like touchless solutions or materials that are perceived as easily cleanable.
For sure. It's about making people feel comfortable enough to actually practice good hygiene.
Okay, so armed with all this data from the surveys and the simulations, the researchers then moved on to actually redesigning the portable toilet.
All right, now we're getting to the good stuff. So how did they go about improving the design based on, all those observations?
Well, first they started by experimenting with the size of the unit itself using these movable panels. And they determined that the minimum comfortable size, if you were including a toilet and a wash basin, was about 950 millimeters by 1400 millimeters.
Okay, so they're actually setting some standards based on, real user feedback.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just guesswork anymore.
Yeah.
They also decided to widen the door based on all the feedback about people having trouble getting in and out easily.
Yeah, it makes sense. That transition in and out of the toilet is important too.
Right. And they adjusted the dimensions of the toilet itself, making it 820 millimeters high and 450 millimeters deep, specifically to try and reduce that feeling of being confined in a small space.
Oh, okay, that's clever. It's not just about the overall size of the unit, it's about how the space feels once you're inside.
Exactly. And so their initial improved layout for a space of 1,000 millimeters by 1,330 millimeters included a seated toilet, a washstand, the toilet paper holder, a trash can, and of course, a hook.
Okay, so all the essentials are there, but now they're placed more strategically based on, what they observed from people actually using the toilet.
Exactly, exactly.
So did they test out this new design?
They did, they did. They ran another round of simulations, and they found that women showed an even stronger preference for the hooks in the new design compared to men.
Oh, really? So even with the improved layout, that need to keep their belongings off the floor or other surfaces was still really important.
Yeah, exactly. And here's something that I thought was interesting. Even with the new design, 43.8% of participants still clean the toilet seat before using it.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It suggests that those deep-seated hygiene concerns about sitting toilets are they're not easily overcome.
No, no, they're not. Even with the new design, people are still like instinctively trying to make the space feel cleaner for themselves.
Makes you wonder if there needs to be like a combination of good design and maybe even some public awareness campaigns to, really address those concerns.
Yeah, I think so. But there was some good news. The overall impression score after using the redesigned toilet was significantly higher than before.
Okay, so people did notice a difference. What did they like most about the new design?
The feeling of overall space was the thing that scored highest.
Okay, so they were able to achieve a greater sense of spaciousness within that relatively small area.
Exactly, exactly. And that's huge, right? Because it makes the whole experience less claustrophobic and more comfortable.
Right. Were there any areas that still needed improvement, though?
Yeah, the hand washing area and the space around the toilet itself still scored a bit low in terms of that sense of spaciousness.
Okay, so those are the specific areas they could focus on for further optimization, but it's good that they were able to pinpoint those specific areas.
It is, and they did try to optimize those areas. The next thing they did was they actually had participants choose the best locations for different features, like the toilet paper, cleaning fluid, hooks, and the flush pump.
Oh, wow. So they really put the user in control at this stage.
They did. They did. And it's amazing how clear the preferences were. 78.1% of participants preferred the cleaning fluid to be on the left and the toilet paper on the right.
Huh. Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, they think it has to do with handedness, most people being right-handed, and just the natural reach and sequence of actions you do when you use a toilet.
Right. Like if you're reaching across your body to get something, it makes sense to have those things placed in a way that just feels more natural and intuitive.
Exactly, exactly. And then for hooks, most people preferred them to be side by side in a parallel arrangement. And for the flush pump, the lower right corner of the toilet was the most popular spot.
Okay, so it seems like there's definitely some logic behind these preferences. They're not just random choices. It's about how those things fit into the flow of using the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. Like people said they would typically use cleaning liquid while standing, so they wanted it a bit higher. Toilet papers is used while seated, so it needs to be lower and closer.
Makes sense. It's all about designing for how people actually use the space.
Right. Hooks should be at eye level when you're standing, so you can easily hang stuff up. And the flush pump right by the toilet, so you can just, boom, do it right after you're done.
Yeah, it's all about those little details that make a big difference.
So all this led to their final recommended layout, which was super specific. They said the toilet paper holder should be 40 to 60 centimeters from the front of the seat, with 0 to 20 centimeters being the most preferred. For the cleaning liquid, they said it should be on the left of and at the same height as the toilet paper holder, about 10 centimeters away.
Wow, those are some precise measurements.
They are, but it's all based on that user feedback. For hooks, they recommended 160 to 180 centimeters from the floor, with at least two hooks 20 centimeters apart.
Okay, so giving people options for hanging different things at different heights.
Exactly. And the flush pump on the floor, on the right side of the toilet.
All right, so they really thought about every single detail.
They did. For the overall dimensions, they said the short side should be at least 1,000 millimeters, the long side at least 330 millimeters, and the height about 2,350 millimeters.
Okay, so they're really giving some concrete guidelines here.
They are. They are. They recommended a simple flush seat toilet placed right above the storage tank, and then a little platform for placing stuff.
Makes sense. Got to maximize that space.
Exactly. And finally, they suggested putting the wash basin in the corner near the door to avoid those awkward collisions.
Oh, yeah. Smart move.
Okay.
With the outlet pump right below it.
Right, right. So if we take a step back and think about everything we've talked about today, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think it's that even for something as basic as a portable toilet, understanding how people use it and what they want from it can lead to some pretty amazing improvements in the design.
Absolutely. And it's not just about making the space more functional, it's about addressing those common complaints about hygiene, ease of use, and making the whole experience less, well, unpleasant.
Exactly. It shows that user-centered design is crucial no matter what you're designing.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what other things in our daily lives could benefit from this kind of approach?
Right, right. What little frustrations do we just accept because we think, oh, that's just how it is?
And maybe there's a better way if we just stop and really think about how people actually interact with those things. So, listener, I want you to think about your own experiences with public or portable toilets. What's worked well for you? What hasn't?
And do the designs you encounter actually seem to reflect an understanding of what people need? Or is there room for improvement?
I think this deep dive really highlights how important those small details are and how understanding the human element in design can make a huge difference.
Couldn't agree more. Sometimes the most overlooked things can lead to the most innovative solutions.
That's it for today's deep dive. See you next time.